And you have, yours is 40, 45 minutes, is that correct?
40 to 45.
Yes. That's plenty of time, right? Should be plenty of time. Okay, tell me when you guys are gonna turn the phones off?
So much fun to make.
Is that your phone?
Yes, you have to do that.
It's a good thing I did it now, huh? Okay,
Sorry about that.
it's all right. Okay, everybody, just, unless you're recording or your, no other technology on your desk, put the camera, please. And you let me know when I can press my button, and I will press it. You tell me when you're ready to go.
Okay. Ready?
Okay?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of San Francisco, Dr. Dunn. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you. I know we all have very busy schedules, but I appreciate you all taking the time to join us and discuss the sensitive yet important topic of homelessness in the city. My name is Angela Delatorre. I own a coffee shop in the city, in the Mission District, actually. Here we have Banu Nashtari, a local, faithful patron in my store. We have Mike Devine, owner and founder and CEO of the homeless shelter down the street. Jacqueline Bishop, known as Jax, is our city attorney. And of course, we all know Oscar Mendoza, the mayor. I know I'm sure we all voted for him. I know I did. Thank you. So we're here to address the effects of homelessness in the city and to analyze the current programs available to address, to help the people as right currently, as well as to discuss potential solutions and their logistics, legalities, and potential ramifications of these proposed solutions. We're going to conclude with a consensus of future actions when we reconvene here in about 6 months or so. And we'll conclude with that. And a little background of this committee is just to give you an idea. Hey, Banu and I were, about a month ago, Banu and I were sitting in my shop enjoying a wonderful cup of coffee, discussing the homeless folks sitting right outside. Our conversation sparked a mutual desire to do something about it, to take some action. So to further understand the topic, we first went to Mike Devine down the street to check out his homeless shelter, to understand what the reasons that people are homeless, the reasons they stay homeless, and things like that. We then went to Jacqueline, Jax, to discuss the legalities, what they can do, what they can't do, what I can do as a business owner, what I can't do, what they can be arrested for, things of that nature. And then we went to Oscar to discuss the current programs available and potential funding available to either start new programs or to maybe beef up some existing programs. Okay, so I'll start this. Go ahead. Give that a minute. So I'll start this by saying homelessness affects all of us on a multitude of economic and social levels. It produces direct effects, indirect effects, and induced effects as well. These direct effects, for example, are things that are specific to the event. My personal experience as a shop, when there are homeless people sitting outside soliciting donations and patrons walk by, they just keep on walking. They don't want to be bothered. They don't want to be asked for money. They just don't want to deal with it. So they just keep on walking and hopefully get to the next coffee shop in hopes that there's nobody there soliciting donations. When I lose money, or another direct effect, I apologize, another direct effect is theft. Desperate times call for desperate measures. They come in, they steal napkins, sugars, who knows why, but they do. They take the newspapers so they can get shelter and they can keep warm. They might find an old coffee cup in a garbage can from somewhere else and then come and refill their coffee at my complimentary coffee stations. All these things cost me money as a business owner, and I lose money. When I lose money, it causes indirect effects. such as I can't go buy as much coffee from my suppliers. Their business-to-business activity levels decrease because I don't have the money. I'm not going to continue to buy coffee that I can't sell. I'm not going to buy as many newspapers if they're just going out for shelter. These indirect effects, now that everybody's making less money, I'm making less money, my suppliers are making less money. If the business continues to decrease, I might have to lay off an employee or two, maybe more. So maybe some of my suppliers have to lay off some of their employees because all the business is declining everywhere. It's a ripple effect, and I'll give you a little view of this here. So as you can see, it starts with direct effects there, moves on to indirect effects, as I mentioned, business to business activity levels decrease, unemployment increases, and then the induced effects, as you can see, it's a cycle. Business decreases, people lose money, people spend less. And then it goes back to business keeps decreasing. People are spending less money, losing more income, spending less, and the cycle continues. I went on to look up about a case study. I went on to look up a case study done in Petaluma, California, where they were assessing the risks of government funding being decreased for an existing homeless shelter with a COTS program that they provide rehabilitation services, counseling services, and all different types of aid for the homeless people. In 1 year, if the government decreased their funding for this program, in 1 year, the whole city of Petaluma would lose $20.6 million in annual revenue, which would indirectly or induce an annual lost tax revenue of $1.66 million. Additionally, 124 people could potentially lose their jobs. As you can see, these numbers are pretty intense, and they provide a whole lot of public opinions. One public opinion, for example, made by a young San Francisco entrepreneur, Mr. Greg Gottman. He is a young entrepreneur in the tech industry. And he went on to say that there's nothing more grotesque than walking down Market Street in San Francisco. He continued to get really offensive by saying the degenerates gather like hyenas and spit and urinate, taunt you. They run the town, they sell drugs, get rowdy. They act like they own the town, or act like they own the city, like it's their place of leisure. He even says, if they added the smallest iota of value, I'd consider thinking differently. But the crazy toothless lady on the corner that kicks everybody who gets too close to her cardboard box hasn't made anybody's life better in a while. That's a pretty intense public opinion. I, for one, am a business owner. I don't have that strong opinions. I don't judge people for their financial hardships or their economic situation. It's not my place to judge. But I do also, at the same time, do not want it to affect my hard work and my income. There's another response to that. There was a fellow entrepreneur who mentioned, and he said it's not like he wasn't saying anything that all the other people in the startup community haven't been saying or been wanting to say. So there's a lot of intense opinions out there, and we'll hear from Bauman here in a moment regarding his opinion. In conclusion, I don't want to judge. I want to help. I would personally love to see some sort of work opportunity program that I would happily participate in. Participating businesses like myself, working maybe with homeless shelters like yours might, to where if you can provide work or if you can provide a shelter and a food and a shower for these people every day, I would happily employ them sweeping the floors, maybe greeting guests at the door rather than running them off. Either way, I'm happy to help, and I want to address these situations and see what we can do about this. So let's hear from Bauman here about his personal experience as he lives and works in the city.
Thank you, Angela. So I remember the day that I met you in the coffee shop and we talked about this important topic. I went home and started to do my research immediately, and I came up with this little chart based on the statistics that I found. But I wanted to talk about my own opinion and experience first, my family and friends' opinion as just normal citizens living in the city. I live in San Francisco and I'm very happy. I work at Google. But when I see these homeless people around, that gives me this weird feeling. I don't like that because I take subway to work every day, and I see these people just sitting around, running around. They're not clean. They're unsanitary. They don't shower very often. They are spreading disease. They're carrying viruses and bacteria that can cause infections, and that's a big problem. Another big problem that I personally have with homelessness is their drug addiction. So whenever I hear homeless, this picture of a messy person with some sort of drug addiction and sometimes a mental illness on top of it, comes into my mind. And that's not good for a civilized society, having these type of people around. Because a drug addicted person is unpredictable. They can't have clear thinking. What if mental illness is added on top of that, and that person is also homeless, doesn't have a source of income, doesn't have a job, and is craving the drug? He's probably gonna steal from someone. He's probably gonna attack someone. He can become criminal. So you see how drug addiction can make the homelessness worse, can make criminals out of homelessness because they need to support their habit. This is a big point for me, the drug addiction, and my chart is going to be based on that. But there's also another fact about homelessness that I'm very concerned about, and is loitering. I see homeless people loitering around business areas, residential areas. I myself, when I take my 10 minutes break to go get some fresh air and shake off my stress so I can get back to work and be more productive and refresh. When I see a homeless person comes along and asks me for money, ask me for change, sometimes ask me for an extra cigarette, I don't want to give out the change or money, but this is disturbing. I'm here to enjoy my 10 minutes break by myself. I don't like to even talk to anyone when I'm on my 10 minutes break. I don't want someone to ask me money in that only 10 minutes that I have. So you see how this is inconvenient? And this could be the same thing in different situations for different people. You see you have your own problem with homelessness, with your coffee shop. I have my problem with drug addiction among homelesses, with that panhandling, begging for money. And something else that I wanted to point out is that usually homeless people have this hatred feeling, this disgust feeling against their own society, because they feel that they've been left out, because they feel that all these people are using these all sort of benefits and they can't, they don't. So that could bring some mental problems. That could bring some fear to people around them, because if they feel like that, they're unpredictable again. You know, it's probably gonna act somehow like that addiction. They can't do anything out of that because of that feeling. They can attack people. If they see a kid alone, that kid might be targeted for rape. If they see a woman alone who can't defend herself, that woman might be targeted for stealing. You know, the homeless person might go attack the person to steal from her, to get some money, buy drugs. And I want to show you this little chart I have here. This is based on the statistics I found myself. There's 3 drugs: marijuana, heroin, and methamphetamine. You can see they grow. The blue is supposed to show 2008, and the green is showing 2012. And you see these 3 drugs have been grown. The use of these 3 drugs have been grown among homeless significantly, especially methamphetamine. because these drugs are found easily these days, and a drug like methamphetamine, which is a high addictive drug and very dangerous, can be easily made at your home, in your own kitchen, using simple ingredients that you can find at a pharmacy store. But the point that I'm trying to, the point that I have here is that this problem could have been anticipated back in 2010, and maybe the use of methamphetamine amongst citizens, especially homeless, could be reduced or controlled better by some sort of laws, some sort of rules. Because how can we sell these ingredients when we know the use of it is growing really fast, and especially for homeless? Because if a homeless person is addicted to a dangerous drug like methamphetamine, anything could happen when that person needs the drug. I want to finish my speak here because I know you are going to talk more about substance abuse and homeless problem. I just try to do my own part as a regular citizen, someone who lives in San Francisco and hopes for a better future. Thank you for letting me be part of this and giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Palmer. So I see you have some pretty strong opinions about homeless. Does anybody else have some personal opinions that they've either heard or had of their own personal opinions, basically, regarding homeless? What do you think, Mike? You deal with them every day. You work with them. You work with them.
Yeah, I feel maybe that you have a negative image on all homeless when in fact it's not really the case. There are some homeless that have drug and alcohol issues, some have mental illnesses, but majority of them want to get better. They would do almost anything to not be homeless anymore and get out of their current situation. But it's harder than what a lot of people think. They think because the way they're living, that it's easy to have a job and maintain their lifestyle, but when you're down that low, it's hard to get out of that hole.
Okay. So you basically they're not all drug addicted, crazy people.
Exactly.
Well, you deal with these people in a daily basis. When I see a drug addicted homeless person or someone with mental illness around, I don't feel like that drug addicted homeless person tends to go to the shelter, homeless shelter. I feel like they want to live in the street, use drug, steal.
And unfortunately, I'm going to step in here and comment right here. The homeless people, as the city attorney, they do have their own rights where they don't have to go to a shelter. And illegal drug use or recreational drug use is legal regardless of their homeless state or not. So other people who might have a home, places to cook the meth, it's also illegal. So I don't know if just the homeless people that you're witnessing are only using drugs, or maybe have a mental illness that looks like a drug abuse. But again, they have their own rights to where they don't need to have services or go into services like Mike's.
Well, I also think that from our perspective of the city and what we see in our statistic, the homeless situation is very complex, and there's some drug addiction, but also there's other aspects of homelessness. People that, for circumstances, to be homeless just happen. And they're homeless 1 month. There's some other people who are more permanent situation. So I think we talk a little more about that and some of the factors that might influence people to use drugs and what we can do to break that cycle.
Thank you, man. Thanks, Mayor Spring. Okay, Mike, let's hear from you. What about some of the main reasons people are homeless?
Yeah. In my experience, there are 4 main reasons for homelessness, being substance abuse, mental illness, lack of affordable housing, and poverty. It seems to me when I ask most people what poverty is, they don't really have a good answer. Poverty, people are usually born into poverty. They grow up with no education, they grow up with no health care, and suffer bouts of malnutrition throughout their childhood growing up. So when they do become of age to go out and get a job and try to get out of that situation, they're usually not in good physical health. They don't have a good education, so it's hard for them to even have skills to even get, minimum wage level jobs. I'm going to read a quote from a letter that was sent by an anonymous person living in poverty to the Oklahoma University Gazette. It kind of gives some insight into what they go through. Poverty is an acid that drips on pride until all pride is worn away. Poverty is a chisel that chips at honor until all honor is worn away. Some of you say you would do something in my situation, and maybe you would for a day, for a week, but would you year after year after year after year? That gives you an idea of what they go through. Lack of affordable housing. In America, there are over 1 million more low-income families than there are affordable housing to house them. So there are those people that without affordable housing, they have to get regular housing on low incomes and low wages. And every year, housing costs and rental costs go up, and the minimum wage doesn't even come close to coming up with it. So many families are priced out of that, and they end up turning to shelters like mine to house their families so they don't live on the streets. And many times we are full, and they end up having to go to the streets. About 25% suffer from mental illness, such as depression, bipolar disorder, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Mental illness causes them to not be able to maintain their daily activities, such as having a job, paying their bills, and maintaining relationships. Obviously, when they can't maintain jobs, they're going to not have an income and become homeless. When it's difficult to maintain stable relationships when you have a mental illness, and obviously you need those relationships to help take care of your situation, especially when you have a mental illness. So that's something that, with no support, it becomes even a bigger problem. About half of the homeless that have mental issues turn to drug and alcohol as a coping mechanism, so they can not have to deal with their current situation. And then over half of all homeless people say within their experience that drug and alcohol plays a part in either why they're homeless or plays a part when they become homeless. Some people become homeless because they have drug and alcohol issues. They obviously can't maintain their household. It's almost like an illness. They suffer from not being able to hold their job, and all their focus goes on their substance abuse, so they go downhill from there. They also can't maintain those relationships to help them get out of their situation. Some people that are homeless, they lose their inhibitions and their pride, and they turn to drug and alcohol to forget about their situation and not deal with their problems at hand. So they turn to substance abuse. And when you're homeless, you don't have a support system in place, such as family or friends a lot of the time, and no money for rehab clinics. So without a support system, it's, some would say, nearly impossible to get out of that situation. And even with people that aren't homeless and they have a support system, they'd say it's even hard to get out of their substance abuse issues. I'm going to show you a quick video of an interview of a homeless person that gives you some insight into what they go through on their day-to-day lives.
My name is Lorena, and I did have a home on the road, and I had 2 jobs. I worked with seniors, and I also did another part-time Burger King, McDonald's, Goodwill. I have my jobs. And my boyfriend got deported, I got laid off, and I became homeless. I wasn't able to manage rent money. I got to find me an overhang and actually pray to God I would get waking up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning with my plastic out with sheriffs and said, well, you can't be here because this is private property. The owners don't want you here. We're always being judged. They don't look at us that we have family, we have life, and it's unfair. your dignity. You lose your dignity, you know, your pride.
So that should give you some insight into kind of what they have to deal with in their lives. In conclusion, I would like to see more funding federally or locally to help with more shelters so we can get more space for them, and to help with programs like counseling and rehab and even the work programs that we can get them back into jobs. And you know, I give a lot of myself, my personal finances. I can't even afford decent attire to be here because I give all my finances to back into the shelter. So I would like to see additional funding. Thank you.
Mike? Okay, Jax, let's hear from you about some of the legal rights that they have. And any laws that have changed or are in place already?
Handout of different laws. Out. That way you guys can follow along and have all the bills. If you want to look at them later. So as the city attorney for San Francisco, homelessness and homeless individuals are something I directly handle and see on a daily basis. And I'm also here not only to help and give you guys legal counsel, but to be here as representation for the homeless individuals themselves and make sure that their rights are being taken into account. With so many acting agencies here and different parties, I'm going to go ahead and define homelessness so we can have the same definition and make sure that we're working towards the solution. Homelessness is defined as individuals or families who lack or are perceived to lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, or who have primary nighttime residence in a shelter, on the streets, in a vehicle, or an enclosed structure that's not deemed for human habitation. Homeless can also be defined as anyone whose residency is somewhere they don't have tenancy rights, like a hotel. If they are only living in a hotel, they don't have any tenancy rights, they can also be deemed as homeless. Since the Civil War, homelessness and homeless people have been criminalized and discriminated against.